some of the veterans? We got a great question from Brooke Oace, I'm going to say. Sorry about that, Brooke, but thanks for this great question. Will some of the veterans be back on the roster for June games? There's a friendly between June 20th and June 28th, I believe. She mentioned Tobin Heath, Christen Press, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, and Sam Mewis. Now, Mewis dealing with a bit of an injury. Megan Rapinoe coming back from injury, getting more and more minutes with OL Reign. But thoughts on these veteran players, Lori Lindsey?
Okay, Lisa Roman. Listen, I mean, I think Alex and Christen will get called in. I think, and honestly, I think if Becky Sauerbrunn is, it did sound like she almost came into the game the other night,
Right.
and then maybe, like tactically, just how the game was going. I do think she could certainly be in the mix. She is the captain, or has been the captain, right? And just need to recover from the injury. And as soon as she gets minutes, I think that is a player that will absolutely, especially Tierna Davidson being gone, Noel Kemper being a little bit in and out with some injuries and I think concussion protocol, maybe.
Yes, concussion protocol.
So I think those three for sure. I will be curious about Megan Rapinoe. I do not think Tobin Heath right now. Tobin didn't play a ton of minutes. I think she's coming back from injury. She's clearly not playing right now, right? Whatever's happening behind the scenes, though. And like, listen.
You'll tell us next week.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you next week once I figure out what's happening, if I can figure it out. However, this isn't like these players are just like floating around, not knowing what's going on. Like there is precise communication that's taking place. Vlatko and his staff are having conversations with all the head coaches, right? Like this information is being trickled down. There's constant communication on what coaches like plugging different players on their team. So this is an ever evolving conversation. This isn't just like, oh, I hope I get called in. I hope you think I'm playing well, right? Like Vlatko would be calling and talking to these players as well. So I'll be curious though about Megan Rapinoe. She brought energy to the game on Friday night. I personally thought she played the best ball of the game. You don't see many players. It was a ball into Allie Watt that created a chance. You do not see many players playing that type of ball in this league, right? So now, granted, regardless of age, whatever you want to say, I think, age question is relevant in some cases and pretty hilarious in others and not necessary. It's like, if you're playing well and you provide a role for what Vlatko and his staff is looking for, great. Get called in. Let's go. Let's move on. Right?
I agree completely. I think it needs to be shouted a little bit more from the rooftops that these players know they are in communication with the coaching staff, that it's not just like randomly getting a phone call on a Saturday afternoon saying, hey, we need you to come to camp tomorrow. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a bit more dialogue to that. And they are in communication with Sam Mewis about her recovery. She's coming back from a bit of an injury and dealing with that. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Mewis get called in or maybe be called in, but only to be seen by the U.S. staff to work on her recovery. But that doesn't mean she's out for the World Cup by any means. I think Sam Mewis is one of the players that Vlatko Andonovski definitely wants to have on his roster in that midfield. All right, Lori, I want to move up the field a little bit, look at some of the forwards. We got a lot of questions about the forward group for the United States women's national team. Yumi Schultz, she mentioned Katerina Macario. She mentioned having Macario, Mallory Pugh, and Sophia Smith. They're the starters when Ashley Hatch, a player for Washington Spirit, is scoring almost every single game since returning, and she scored against a top 12 team in Australia back in November during those friendlies. So among this new generation of forwards between Macario, Pugh, and Smith, how does Hatch fit into that trio?
Yeah, I think this is the one that's like a bit the most interesting probably and complex, because it goes back to what we were saying. She does really well at the NWSL level and consistently provides, and I think it's such a good target and plays off of Sanchez and Rodman really well and with the Spirit. However, I think the tough one is that there's just so much depth, right? And then you add Alex Morgan back in, maybe Christen Press. That depth becomes even more so than we already saw. So, and when those players, the veteran players that weren't even there in the last few international windows, Hatch was mainly just coming off the bench. Now, credit to her, she was scoring. So it was like every time she's coming on the field.
In like a minute, she steps on the pitch and scores.
Yeah, no doubt. Her first touch all the time. So that is something to look at. But again, I think it depends on how she fills out the role, right? And particularly what Vlatko is looking for in that. Because if you're looking at Macario, who most likely right now is the starting number 9, that player's not going to come off the field that much, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the way that she plays and what they want. You're going to see the wingers come off more. So, in my opinion, or there's just going to be some rotation. You can drop Macario back. You can play her as a winger, right? And then you'll bring somebody in. But right now, I would say I personally really like how Hatch is playing. But I would say in terms of goal production and knowing exactly what you're getting from Alex Morgan with over 100, maybe even close to 200. I don't have the notes in front of me. Caps, right? Like she's producing more than Hatch right now, and that's just the way it is. So it's a tough one, and that's why I say like more credit to you. Fight for the national team, and also as everything continues to like unfold, the spots are tough to come by. And again, you could be playing lights out, and that you might not get the call up. Just in terms of what positional amount of roster spots you want in different positions, right? So
yeah, there's so much disparity between this. And as people in our chat are blowing up, the forward conversation is so fun. I'll stat check you here a little bit, Lori. Alex Morgan, she's got 190 caps, 115 goals. Don't worry, that's what I'm here for. Producer, host, friend, I got your back. That's what I'm here for. Another question that we got about the forwards, Chris Murch. I love this question from him. Who will be the United States women's national team leading goal scorer for the 2022 calendar year? Who you got, Lori? She's thinking for those who are listening as a podcast. She's deep.
So I wouldn't have this prepared. I missed this one.
I love throwing these at you. So if we look at our forwards that we have, Kat Macario, Mallory Pugh, Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, Ashley Hatch, Christen Press, Alex Morgan. We could throw Megan Rapinoe in that mix.
And this is the NWSL, or this is actually for the women's national team, right?
This is for the U.S. women's national team. So that means CONCACAF W qualifiers this summer and everything.
Yeah, Macario.
Okay.
Yep. I think the only reason why there might be a little bit of a hiccup is I'll be curious on what her training and everything looks like up until the June. So it's like another month, right? And she's essentially outside of playing. Well, that's untrue because she has I want to call it the Challenge Cup. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
The Challenge Cup.
FA Cup and
thank you. Champions League.
Champions League, yes. Because she's playing with Lyon.
So that window gets a little bit shorter, and then she'll have a little bit of rest before the June international window. I was thinking it was a little bit longer, but it's actually not. So my answer sticks with Kat. I think Kat is certainly coming into her own. The position that she's playing, she feels, I think, comfortable as that kind of 9, withdrawn 9 with the national team. And we've seen what her free kicks look like. I think there's going to be a multiple ways that she can score goals for the national team. So she's a hard, number 1 for me.
Wow. Okay. It took a little bit of thought from you.
Well, because I was still kind of halfway between the NWSL thinking, 2022 campaign of national team players in the NWSL. So that's where I was like, oh no. But no, with the national team, Kat.
Yeah, I totally respect that. Our chat is blowing up. Pew, 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 pew. She's dealing with a bit of a concussion right now. She can be a goal scorer, but I don't agree with Mallory Pugh. Honestly, if Alex Morgan gets called in, I could see Alex Morgan going on a tear, kind of as she's hitting her 200th cap with the national team. I don't know. I think Kat Macario is a great pick for this one as well, just because of how she's getting into this and the consistency that she has and how her teammates are playing off of her when she's with the national team, frankly. But we'll see. I like this. I like that question a lot. Thanks so much, Chris Murch.